All right, let's get right into it. When you see pictures of massive warships cutting through the ocean, it's pretty easy to just write it off as another military drill. But the Malabar naval exercise, well, that's something different. This is way more than just practice. It's become a huge geopolitical statement, a real symbol of how our world is shifting.
So that's the big question, right? Is this just four friendly navies getting together to run some plays, or is this the actual military muscle behind a strategy that's shaping the entire Indo-Pacific? We're going to dig into what turns a simple exercise into a major strategic event.
And at the heart of it all are these four nations, the big maritime democracies of India, the United States, Japan, and Australia. You probably know them better as the Quad. And Malabar? Well, that's their most powerful, most visible way of working together.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the 2024 exercise brought together 9 of their most advanced warships. Now, look, 9 might not sound like a giant number, but that's not the point. The key here is the incredible quality and cutting-edge capability of every single ship and aircraft they sent.
So, what does this modern-day exercise actually look like when they're out on the water? Let's break it down. Because when you look past the impressive destroyers and frigates, you start to see what the real story is.
And here's where it gets really telling. 3 of the 4 nations brought their P-8 aircraft. Now, for those who don't know, this is the world's absolute best submarine hunting plane, period. When you see this many of them working together in one place, that is a massive signal. They're not just practicing random naval skills, they are laser-focused on one very specific, very difficult mission.
And that mission is called Anti-Submarine Warfare, or ASW. In the huge, dark depths of the ocean, trying to find a quiet, modern submarine is like finding a needle in a continent-sized haystack. It's one of the hardest things any Navy can do. So this intense focus on ASW, it's no accident. It is a direct response to the incredibly fast and often very quiet expansion of China's submarine fleet all across the Indo-Pacific.
And the planes are just the beginning. I mean, look at the hardware they brought to the party. India sent guided missile destroyers and corvettes literally designed to hunt subs. The US brought in a top-of-the-line Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. Japan and Australia, same deal. Their most advanced ships. This isn't just a random collection. It's a high-end, purpose-built task force.
But it wasn't always this big, powerful operation. Malabar has had a really long and sometimes pretty bumpy history that perfectly mirrors the changing political tides of the region. It's a 30-year journey that tells a fascinating story.
So how in the world did a pretty modest 2-country exercise from the 90s turn into the military centerpiece of the Quad? The answer is a story of starts and stops, of pressure and politics, and ultimately, of 4 nations realizing they were facing the same challenges.
Let's just walk through this timeline, because it's like a barometer for geopolitics. It all starts back in 1992, just a simple drill between the US and India. Then boom, it's suspended in '98 after India's nuclear tests. Politics, right? In 2007, it suddenly gets huge. Japan, Australia, and Singapore all join in. China protests, and loudly. So loudly that by 2008, Australia actually pulls out. For over a decade, it's a quieter thing. But the real game changer? 2020. With tensions rising with Beijing, India invites Australia back in. And just like that, the 4-nation Malabar is reborn.
And that brings us to today and its modern purpose. You see, Malabar isn't just an exercise anymore. It's the operational arm, you could even call it the teeth, of the Quad's entire vision for the Indo-Pacific.
You hear the Quad talk all the time about ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific. It's a vision of a region that runs on international rules, not on one country forcing its will on others. But diplomatic phrases alone don't enforce anything. Malabar provides the credibility. It's the proof that these 4 powers can and will work together to protect those principles at sea.
And this gets to a really smart part of the Quad strategy. It's a 2-track approach. Publicly, when the leaders meet, they talk about really positive things, right? Vaccines, climate change, technology. But at the same time, quietly and professionally, Malabar is handling the hard security stuff, deterrence, interoperability, and high-end warfighting skills.
Now, at the heart of all this practice is a military buzzword, interoperability. It sounds technical, but it really just boils down to 3 simple things. First, can your gear talk to their gear? That's technical compatibility. Second, do you all follow the same playbook when things get complicated? That's procedural harmony. And maybe the most important one, human trust. Do the captains and the crews trust each other's skills when the pressure's on? That's what Malabar is really all about, forging that trust. Of course, we can't have an honest conversation about Malabar without talking about the one factor that has shaped this thing from the very beginning, the elephant, or maybe the dragon, in the room. We're talking about China's perspective.
So, from Beijing's perspective, this isn't a defensive grouping. As we see from analyses of their state media, Malabar is viewed as the military backbone of an Asian NATO. The narrative is that this is an aggressive alliance led by the US, specifically designed to contain China's rise. And that's a powerful story to tell other countries in the region who are nervous about having to pick a side.
So, in their eyes, it is the clear manifestation of an Asian NATO. It's not just a drill, it's seen as a direct challenge, a coalition being built to limit China's strategic goals, especially its ambitions in key maritime choke points.
And China's response to this has gotten way more sophisticated over the years. Gone are the days of just loud diplomatic protests like in 2007. Now it's more about measured public statements. But behind the scenes, the real response is military. We're talking spy ships shadowing the exercise, and more importantly, the PLA running its own massive drills to show that they aren't intimidated and that they're building the power to counter this coalition.
Okay, so with all that history and tension as the backdrop, where does Malabar go from here? Its future path is really going to be a key sign of just how ambitious and how unified the Quad plans to be.
And one of the biggest questions you hear all the time is about expansion. Are they going to let more countries into the club? Will we see some kind of Malabar-Plus?
You know, adding a formal fifth member seems pretty unlikely, at least for now. These four nations have built a really high level of trust, and they don't want to dilute that. What's way more likely is a more flexible approach, inviting partners like the UK or France as observers, or bringing in a Southeast Asian Navy for a specific part of the drill, building a wider network without messing with the core group.
The other big leap is going to be in complexity. The next step isn't just being able to work together, it's about becoming truly integrated. We're talking about dominating the undersea world with unmanned drones, practicing joint cyber warfare, and getting to a point where one nation's drone can guide another nation's missile. This is the absolute cutting edge.
So when you step back and look at the whole 30-year journey, it's just incredible. Malabar has completely transformed. This is no longer just some naval drill. It's become a vital geopolitical institution, probably the most powerful tool the Quad has to signal its resolve in the world's most important ocean.
And that brings us right back to where we started, and it leaves us with a final, really big question to think about. Is Malabar a coalition for stability? A group of democracies just trying to uphold the rules? Or are we watching the dawn of a new Cold War, being played out on the high seas? The future of the Indo-Pacific really might hang on that answer.